Hey guys, welcome back for our final lesson with Out of the Desk, lesson 33, where you edit and produce a final draft. Now, I know that it's been a long time coming to this point, but I'm very excited. I'm very proud of you for working to get to this point. Now, with today's lesson, like with all the other lessons, remember, stop and pause when you need to take a break, go outside, go do something, okay? Because right now, your mental health is extremely important, as well as getting stuff done. But you need to take care of yourself too, all right? So we're wanting you to take care of your mind and your body. Now, with this one today, you're going to make sure that you need to have your device, which you should be watching this on, something to write with, and some like pencil or paper, as well as your copy of Out of the Desk. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Now, we have been working the past few times with the writing process. So last lesson, we revised our work using the assessment rubric and a revision checklist, okay? So that's all that we did in the last lesson, all right? It wasn't as much writing, but it was more of like revising and then adding some stuff if we needed to, okay? So let's see what we're gonna do today. So today, we're gonna do two things. We're gonna finish up this writing process, Will, by first going into editing and then into publishing. So we'll talk about how to publish that. Now, today we're going to edit our draft, correcting spelling, mechanics, and grammar errors. And now mechanics are things like sentences, stuff like that. And then we're going to create a final draft. So let's go in and see what all you're going to need to do. Now, today you're going to need a copy of Out of the Desk. You're also going to need your argument editing checklist, which is right here in your books, in your purple folder. So you might have a green one on page 40, and then your reading log, okay? Also, you want to make sure you have your draft copy of your essay. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So let's read your argument editing checklist. Now remember, this is on page 40 in your purple folder. So remember, 40. So let's go through this. Now remember, it has things for self and peer. So you can do this with your parents if you want to, or someone that's nearby, or a sibling. But let's kind of look at this. Now all of this is focusing on spelling, grammar, and mechanics, okay? So the mechanics are things like the sentence structures. Those are also things like commas, things like that. And so that's why we've been wanting you to practice a little bit on Quill to help build your understanding of those mechanics. Now, so number one, check spelling. Are there any words that look suspicious that should be looked up? All right. So if you say yes, put a Y. If you say no, put an N. Okay. Now, the nice thing about typing your stuff up in Microsoft Word, because I've been asking you to turn that in that way for Miss Deschance and myself, is so like we can see that. But the nice thing about Microsoft Word is that they're already doing stuff like that, okay? If you look, when it underlines words and has like the red, that's actually saying like there's something wrong here. And so that's the nice part of the program, is it has those corrections in there. If there is a run-on sentence, it'll say, hey, you might want to consider revising. So you should have already been kind of getting some stuff here. Now, if there's some things that you've missed, go ahead, look those words up, highlight them, kind of guess and see. Two, this is a formal piece of writing. Is third-person narrative point of view used consistently? Okay? So, again, note the personal pronoun I should not be used except in direct text quotations. Now, that third-person narrative point of view, that's talking about like, well, he talks about and she talks about, all right? You're not going to say, I believe that this. Whenever you're writing a paper like this where you're using an argument, if you use I when you're talking about yourself as the writer of the paper, it kind of makes your paper a little bit weaker, okay? So it takes away some of that strength of your argument, all right? Whenever you use that third person, when you're using the he, you're using the she, you're talking about the characters' names, you're using Karen Hess's name. When you're using those pronouns like they, all those, it's going to make it stronger, okay? Because what happens is whenever you use those first person pronouns like I or we, what that does is actually brings emotion into your argument essay. When you're doing something like this, you want to speak to the logic, to the thinking of it. You don't want to speak to the emotion of it, okay? Because a lot of times our emotions can override our logic, okay? So, number three, when text evidence When evidence from the text is used, the page number appears after the quotation and in parentheses. And it gives you an example there. So make sure whenever you're using quotation from the text, when you're using that evidence, be sure to mark it so your reader can go back and see that evidence for themselves. So, transition words or phrases from page 3, okay? Some of them might need to have a comma after them. All right, and if you look at this, some of them already do. So for example, for evidence statement stems, one example that has the comma already in there is where it says according to the author / text, comma, and then that paraphrase, okay? So make sure that whenever you have an introductory phrase, okay, and a lot of those introductory phrases are in those sentence stems on page 3, make sure that you use a comma. Now, number 8, are all sentences complete? Does each one have a subject and a predicate? Now you might be kind of confused, okay, subject and predicate. We haven't really talked too much about like what each of those are. The subject is the subject of the sentence, it's the noun. The predicate is what the subject is doing. So kind of the predicate's another word for a verb, okay? So the subject and the predicate. Now you've kind of talked about that in the quill a little bit, and so that should have helped some too. Now, the last one on this checklist. Are there any run-on or fuse sentences that need to be separated? Now, run-on sentences is simply when two sentences have been pushed together and there's no punctuation between them. Okay, a run-on sentence is just when, you know, a sentence just keeps going and going and going. So, for example, let's think about someone running a race. Have you ever seen someone run before, and when they're running, they just keep going? Like, here's the stopping point, but they just kind of kept going, and you're like, hey, come back, but they just keep going. Well, that's kind of like what happens whenever our sentences, when we have a run-on sentence. When in a run-on sentence, a sentence is like the runner, where instead of just stopping where they're supposed to stop, it keeps going and continues on. Now, another example, some of you might be too young to know this, but Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is known as being a runner, and in like a lot of scenes, it's kind of funny in the movie, but he just keeps running and running and running. And there's one scene where like he plays football, he makes the touchdown, but he still keeps going. Like he makes it to the end zone and then runs out of the stadium, and you're like, wait, no, you're supposed to stop. So the sentence is kind of like that. Instead of like stopping in like the end zone like Forrest should have done, it just keeps going. So those are run-on sentences, okay? So separate those if they need to be separated. Now go through, check all this. If it says yes, you should be good. If there's anything that you need to fix it, okay? But then kind of come back, double check, get someone else to check as well, and then continue on. So go ahead. If you need to stop and do that, press pause, and when you're ready, press play, and here we go. All right, so ready? Press pause. Okay, so now that you've gone through that checklist, you might be having a little bit of trouble, and that's okay, all right? So you might be like, well, I think it sounds okay. Well, let's read through it again, all right? So what you might want to do is first write it down, okay? Write it down on paper with your hand, because these editing marks that are on the screen here can come in handy. So once you've done that, read your draft aloud to yourself, okay? Does it sound good? Does it flow well? Are there any interruptions? Are there places where you might need to stop, readdress something? So if you need to do that, follow these editing marks, okay? The fragment is a fragment sentence. We talked about that sentence that just keeps going when it should stop. That's a run-on and fuse sentence, so stop if you need to, okay? So go through, check your paper, make these editing marks if you need to. Now make those corrections and then create a final version. So go ahead, do this, and then when you're ready, continue on. All right, so we're done. This is the last slide for At the Desk. Now, in this lesson, you edited your draft using an editing checklist and corrected spelling, mechanics, and grammar errors. Now, you also created a final version of your essay. Now, to submit this final version, what you're going to want to do is you're going to, first, you'll want to type it up, all right? You want to type it up in a new Word document, and you're going to want to label that new Word document, with your name and then final draft of At the Desk essay. Submit that on the assignment on Microsoft Teams, and I'm not going to go into too much detail with that because it's really similar to that video for lesson 30. The only thing you're going to do is change the title, and I've told you how to change that title or what to change it to in the assignment for lesson 33. So for question 3, where it says for you to copy and paste that link, it gives you the directions on how to title it too. So go ahead, make that final draft, make that final version, and submit the final version with Microsoft Word. I know Mrs. Deschamps and myself are very proud of all the hard work that you're doing because we know this is hard right now. We know this is not ideal, but we're very proud of the work that you're putting into this, all right? So go ahead, get this done, take a break, and do something fun. Go outside, enjoy the weather while it's nice, all right? So I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.